Worksheet day 2, now we're in the Mathematics Foundations and we're in the section of fractions. Again, a lot of you may have a fraction calculator, but they want you to do it paper pencil. If you have a calculator that you can check it on, you can go ahead and do that, and I will talk a little bit about using your calculator. But they want you to do it on paper pencil first, and then if you want to check it, you can. Convert my improper fraction to a whole number or a mixed number. Improper fraction, the numerator, which is the top number, is bigger than your denominator. Fractions are really just division problems. This is saying 8 divided by 3. So we're going to do division. I'm going to take 8 and I'm going to divide it by the 3. 3 goes into 8 2 times, and 3 times 2 is 6, and I've got a remainder of 2 left over. So when I write that, I put the remainder over the divisor. So 2 and 2 of my thirds left over. So 3 went in there 2 times. I had 2 out of the 3 left over, 2 and 2/3. Slide that up a little bit. So again, we have an improper fraction, 21/5. I want to change it to a whole number or a mixed number as appropriate. We get a whole number if it divided in there evenly. If it doesn't go in there evenly, that's when we end up with a mixed number. So 21 divided by 5. The 5 goes on the outside. The denominator's the divisor. So 5 goes into 21 4 times. 4 times 5 is 20. I've got 1 left over, so 1/5. So 4 and 1/5 is what my mixed number would be. 5 went into 21 4 whole times with 1 extra left over of my fifths. Now the third one is going the other way around. Convert it from a mixed number to an improper fraction. So if I'm going to go from a mixed number to an improper fraction, I'm going to take my denominator times my whole number. If I've got 6 circles divided into 8 parts, I'm going to take 6 times 8, 48. Plus I'm going to add the numerator, the 1. So 6 times 8 was 48, plus 1 more would be 49. My denominator's not ever going to change. It's going to be that same 8 that was the denominator of that fraction before. So 49/8. So just a little bit about using a fraction calculator. The kind in the bookstore are these Casio calculators. The fraction button is the one that has an ABC on it. If I want to do the fraction 21/5, I do 21, I hit that ABC button, fifths. 21/5, I hit equals, and it gives me 4 and 1/5 on my calculator. Now on your fraction calculator, the shift in the fraction button toggles it back and forth between mixed number mode and improper fraction mode. So if I hit shift and fraction, becomes 21/5. If I hit shift and fraction again, becomes 4 and 1/5. 6 and fraction again, 21/5. Shift and fraction again, 4 and 1/5. So it just switches it back and forth. Now if I want to enter in a mixed number on my calculator, I hit the fraction button between each of those digits. So I do 6 fraction, 1 fraction, 8. So if I hit equals, it still shows me 6 and 1/8. If I want the improper fraction, I do shift and the fraction button, 49/8. 6 and the shift and the fraction button again, 6 and 1/8. Shift and the fraction button again, 49/8. So it just switches it back and forth between mixed number and improper fraction mode. So if I have an improper fraction and I want a mixed number, I divide. If I have a mixed number and want to change it to an improper fraction, I take the denominator times the whole number and add the numerator, which gives me the new numerator, put it over the denominator, which is 8. 4, 5, and 6 just say to reduce my fraction to lowest terms. So whether it's a proper fraction or an improper fraction, when they tell you to reduce it, they just want you to divide by any common factors. If I have 24/30ths, I might look at that and say, both of those are even numbers. I know I can divide by 2. So I'm dividing both the top and the bottom by 2. 24 divided by 2 is 12. 30 divided by 2 is 15. I then look and say, can I divide 12 and 15 by the same number? Well, yeah, they're both divisible by 3. So if I divide by 3, 12 divided by 3 is 4, 15 divided by 3 is 5. Now I have a 4 and a 5. The only thing they're both divisible by is 1, which isn't going to change the fraction. So now I have my fraction in lowest terms, 4/5. Now I could have gotten to that a lot more quickly if I would have recognized right away that both of those happen to be divisible by 6. 24 divided by 6 is 4, 30 divided by 6 is 5. So if I can find a bigger factor that I can divide it by, I can go a little faster, but as long as I keep checking until I don't have any factors other than 1 that divide into both, I should be okay. So here I'm going to start out with 28 over 44, and usually I just look for the quickest one, and if they're both even, 2 is usually the fastest one, or the one I think of first anyway. So 28 divided by 2 would be 14. 44 divided by 2 would be 22. Oh, they're both even again. I can divide by 2 again. 14 divided by 2 is 7. 22 divided by 2 is 11. Now I don't have any common factors, so 7/11. If I would have divided by 4 right away, I would have gotten it right away. So if I have 28 over 32, maybe you recognize right away, oh, I can divide those by 4 instead of just doing 2. 28 divided by 4 is 7. 32 divided by 4 is 8. So 7/8 is going to be my answer. Now again, if you happen to have a fraction calculator and you want to check it, you just enter in the original fraction and hit equals. 28 fraction 32. Whoops, I better hit 32. So 28 over 32, hit equals, 7/8 shows up on your calculator. If I do 28 44ths, 28 fraction 44, I hit equals, 7/11 shows up on my calculator. If I do 24 30ths, 24 fraction 30, hit equals, 4/5 shows up on my calculator. Again, they want you to do it paper pencil first, then if you want to check with your calculator, go ahead. 7, 8, and 9, having you do equivalent fractions, which are important when you're adding fractions because you have to have a common denominator. So what you're doing is you're taking this bigger number and dividing it by the smaller one. You're saying, how many times does 10 go into 40? 10 goes into 40 4 times. If I had to take the denominator times 4, I also have to take the numerator times 4 to make it an equivalent fraction. So I'm going to take 1 times 4, and a 4 would go in that box. 1/10 is the same thing as 4 over 40. Here I have 3/9. 9 goes into 45 5 times. 45 divided by 9 is 5, or 9 times 5 is 45. So if I have to take the denominator times 5, I also have to take the numerator times 5. 3 times 5 is 15. So 3/9 is equivalent to 15 45ths. And on number 9 here, how many times does 11 go into 33? Well, 11 times 3 is 33. So I have to take the numerator times 3. 1 times 3 is 3. So 1/11 is equivalent to 3/33. Now on your calculator, you can't go from a smaller one to a bigger one, but if you kind of wanted to check, you could enter in your answer and see if it was equal to what you started with. If I put 4 fraction 40ths and I hit equals, sure enough it's equivalent to 1/10. 15 fraction 45ths and hit equals, equivalent to 1/3, which is the same thing as 3/9. So that doesn't even always work so well because this might not even be in lowest terms to start with. But hopefully it's easy enough you don't really need your calculator. And then 10, 11, and 12 we're going to add. If we're adding and subtracting fractions, we have to have a common denominator. They have to be like things. I can't add a 1/5 and a 1/2 unless I change them to units that mean the same thing. If my denominators are already the same, I'm just adding the numerators. So the 7 is going to stay on the bottom, and I'm just taking the 6 plus 3. 6 plus 3 gives me 9/7. Now I want you to reduce your answer to lowest terms, so if you could reduce it, you would. And if it's an improper fraction, write it as a mixed number or a whole number. It is an improper fraction, so I'm going to divide. 7 goes into 9 once, with 2 left over. So 1 and 2/7 is going to be my answer as a mixed number. If I'm adding here, again, my denominators are the same, so I just write them as fourths. I'm going to then add my numerator. 2 plus 3 gives me 5/4. Write it in lowest terms. I can't reduce it down. If it's an improper fraction, write it as a mixed number. It is an improper fraction, so I'm going to take 4 into 5, goes in there once, and I've got 1 left over, so 1 and 1/4, which was my divisor, is going to be my answer. 5/4 is the same thing as 1 and 1/4. Now, if you happen to have a fraction calculator, you could do them on there again. I'm going to do 6/7, so 6 fraction 7 plus 3/7 plus 3 fraction 7. If I hit equals, I get the 1 and 2/7. Of course, I expect to see the work on there, so I'm going to know if you just put 1 and 2/7 and don't show any work, that you probably used your calculator. Here, 2/4, so 2 fraction 4 plus 3/4, 3 fraction 4 equals 1 and 1/4. Number 12, again, we already have a common denominator. This one we're subtracting, but our denominator is going to stay the same. We're just going to subtract the numerators. So 3 minus not 2 helps if I write the right problem down. 3 minus 1 is what I have up there. And so 3 minus 1 is going to give us 2 2/15. It is in lowest terms. Can't reduce it down any farther. So again, that's just going to be my answer. And again, if I wanted to check it with my calculator, 3 fraction 15ths minus 1 fraction 15ths equals 2/15. So, your worksheet day 2 did the next 4 problems. We have a few more to cover in the fraction section, so those will be on the next page, but if you want to look to see if you have any of those 4 things on the whole number section underneath fractions, so you go to the slice on your pie that says Math Foundations, then there's subheadings that'll say fraction, and the first 4 things will be those things that we just covered on worksheet 2.